Okay, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you're watching this from. I guess it could be any of those times. So, today, what we're going to be talking about is making the most of your time outside of the school year. So, this could be summer school, summer programs, and also a gap year. We'll be hitting on all of these different topics. Okay, bring summer back. You have somewhere between 7 and 10 weeks. We don't know exactly how long the summer is right now, but you are going to have ample time to use and utilize. If it's 8 weeks, it doesn't all need to be planned, but you want to engage, you want to learn, and you want to find different aspects of yourself to explore. Not every minute of the hours of the days of the summer do you have to have something specific that you are doing, but do be thoughtful about what you want to add to your summer and what does it bring to your life. We cannot talk about all of the things that people do over their summers and what students at ISM specifically do. However, all of the activities and experiences listed here are valid. And each has something different that you will gain and a different benefit that you could extract. So, thinking about the different ways you can engage in your summer based on your wants, your interests, and your needs, and the access that you have is very important. Use your time thoughtfully. It's not about the specific thing that you do, it's more about how it impacts you and deepens you and expands you. This summer program, this summer experience, what you do with your time. Every student's going to have a different path. So we're going to talk about some examples over this presentation, but that does not mean that it is right for you or what would impact you or what is the best for you. So your summer could be thinking about future academics or thinking about things that interest you and the pathway that you're going on, but it doesn't have to be. Engagement is the key, not necessarily the specific thing you do. Make sure to make connections and to have a purpose. But most importantly, think about you. This gets to be fun. Your summer gets to be fun. You may be thinking to yourself, how do I even start thinking about what I could do over the summer? Or start thinking about how to access these different ideas or these different experiences, because there really are unlimited opportunities that you could engage in. So what I've done is listed some guided questions here to start thinking about and really delving into what you and your family think is important or useful. Do you want to learn something new? Do you want to learn a new language? Do you want to learn how to code using Python? Do you want to learn how to sail? What is it that you want to do? Is it something new? Or do you want to expand on a specific skill or knowledge that you already have? Think about what you find enjoyable. Do you love being in the outdoors? Do you like sitting with a group of like-minded students and really debating different topics of the day? Think about you. Try to push yourself outside of your comfort zone a little bit. This is important for growth. Can it be connected to my education? Is there something specific I want to learn more about? Or do I know that I want to study medicine and I need to build on that experience and gain something to do with that? Gain experience that has to do with medicine or veterinary sciences or something else specific? Do you need to work on an art portfolio? These are all important things to consider when choosing what you're doing over the summer. We cannot forget that COVID exists. How could we? But COVID doesn't have to stand in your way on having an enjoyable summer. But it does mean you might need to be a little bit more creative. You might be quite a bit more adaptable. And you might have to be more thoughtful about the logistics in your planning. So, research is important, understanding timelines, visa processes, and where your family will be able to go could be some ways that COVID could impact your decisions for this summer. It's hard to make a decision during COVID. I know that all of us are struggling here. So I like Emily Oster's 5-step decision-making process during COVID. If you want to look at it more deeply, you can find it on the web. But basically, she gives a framework for making a decision. First, frame the question. What are the specific alternatives you're thinking about? Is it an online program, or do you want to go in person? Make sure to mitigate the risk. Think about the ways to do the different options that you may be interested in. If you want to do research, can you do research in a small group or at a university? Or can you do it at home on your own, maybe with a friend? Evaluate the risk. How risky is each thing that you're thinking about? But also be sure to think about the benefits that you're gaining. And what are the different aspects that you could gain from one experience over another? Then the hardest one, and the one that is most important to think about, is to make a decision. And then know that you've done your due diligence and move on. Okay, this is not a specific timeline, but all of these are things that you can do to prepare. Some programs have different requirements, so the earlier, the better in terms of preparing. But think about you, as we discussed previously. Discuss your option with your kids and family. Talk to your counselor. They are a wealth of information. Do research on your own on different programs or aspects of things that you'd like to do. Create your own timeline. Create your own calendar of when you want to have these things done. Know what is needed and when. When will you need to submit an application if you're signing up for a program? Also, one thing that's important to note is that you need to give your teachers and or Miss Tina 2 weeks notice if you're asking for a letter of rec or a transcript. This is the official policy. This helps them to say yes and write something that is the most impactful for you. Though it is possible a teacher might write something in a shorter amount of time, or a counselor could submit something for you, it is not as appropriate and it's not as thoughtful. So do your research early. I've started looking into many programs while creating this presentation, and not many of them have opened as of yet, but you can start looking in past years to see what application processes there were, and so that you can prepare them early and know what's likely to be needed and check timelines. Okay, let's start talking about specific programs. We cannot go into all of them. There are so many out there, but start to get an idea of what you want so that you can start researching specifics. Okay, what is an enrichment program? This is a blanket term to describe an experience with other people where you learn something together. Many universities offer enrichment programs. Something to note, if you do take the SATs or the pre-SATs, you will likely start to be targeted for ads for some of these different programs. They can market very sneakily and very thoughtfully, so be a conscientious consumer and check in if you're curious about a program. University programs are like academic summer camps. You can learn and do cool stuff. Sometimes they're taught by university professors and sometimes not. Sometimes they're run by the university specifically, and sometimes they're loosely affiliated with the college. So be sure to do your own research and have an understanding of what you're applying to. Some programs are competitive. Some programs look like they're competitive and are not. Um, so some of them are looking and are quite expensive. That's not to say that they're bad, but knowing if they will help with your application to a specific university, but most will not help with applications in that way. They are a good way to get experience of living a bit more independently, trying out a college campus, and hanging out and learning with kids from outside of our specific school. Do know who the teachers are that you're going to be working with. Are they professors, outside educators? This may or may not impact what's being taught, but it is something to think about. There are more competitive programs. Oftentimes, the more competitive programs may be free or at a reduced amount compared to the more the academic enrichment programs we were talking about earlier. The more competitive programs might actually be helpful in your college admissions, but not necessarily. Just note, if you are applying for a competitive enrichment program, oftentimes their applications are similar to an application for a competitive university. So they take time and thoughtfulness. For some examples are Telluride, Promise Math, and SSP. So let's give you an example of one. We had one question that people often ask. Would attending Stanford's summer program improve one's chances for freshman admission to Stanford? The answer is no. Sometimes people think that it can show an interest in school or get a leg up for applications to that specific university. I want to go to Boston College. I should go to Boston College summer enrichment program. Well, that could be a fun experience. It's not necessarily, it will not help with your application to that university. It will not impact the admissions to the school. If you choose to go for other reasons, then that's great. There are many things to look at and to take into account as to a specific program might be a good fit for you. But as the quote in this slide says, it is what you take from experience, how you share that experience, and how that experience has enhanced your intellectual life that is important, not the specific program. Okay, what are one of these more competitive programs? SSP, Summer Science Program. I was talking to Clara Hahn, and she was talking about her summer, this last summer of 2020, and what she did. She told us, I hope that more ISM students get to know about SSP because it's so awesome. She did a 6-week long biochemistry enrichment program that is affiliated with MIT, Caltech, and Harvey Mudd. There are 4 different locations and 36 students at each location. 2 locations study biochem and 2 study astrophysics. And they are typically for rising seniors, but could also be for rising juniors, though the chances of getting in as a rising junior are quite slim. But it could happen. This year, typically they're on a college campus, but this year they did it via Zoom. They have not said what their summer programs will look like this year, but they said that it was very successful to do them online. So what Clara was doing was 8 hours a day plus, working in a team of 3 to design a novel fungicide based on experimental data and computational modeling of enzymes and molecules. How cool is that? They had a bunch of guest speakers, and one of them included James Allison, who won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2018. She said that this Not only did my scientific knowledge and skills grow exponentially, but I made life-lasting connections with people. Although this program was extremely challenging and I had faced endless problems during the research progress as I went through all of this with my teammate, I was able to learn the true value of collaboration and expand my limits. She says, I don't usually say these things, but SSP was really life-changing experience for me. She said another big benefit was that this program is a not-for-profit, so the application fee is free and they have generous financial aid. So just knowing that there's so many different options out there, start looking into them early. We actually have a huge list of programs within the counseling office. So talk to your counselor and get the spreadsheet, which has about 175 different programs listed. And knowing that your counselors in grades 11 and 12, they have so much subject specific information. So do talk to them early. Okay, what are other things that you can do? Internships and research projects. You can find programs, you can create programs, you can cold call friends, family, parents. Some will be paid, some won't. 2 internships that I'm going to talk to you about was one student ended up doing a project for Mind Museum. You are guaranteed to know about it if you've been in Manila at all. So she cold called Mind Museum and asked if she could run an internship or if she could engage in an internship with them. She ended up setting up tours and doing projects for kids, and then left the Mind Museum with a manual used to replicate the tours and projects that she did so that they could utilize them after she left. Martina Qua, also another person, did an internship with Teach for the Philippines. She said it was originally canceled due to COVID restrictions, but she called them up and asked if they could do something remote. And they said, yeah. That's why it never hurts to ask. She took on social media responsibilities for large-scale online events and started analyzing platforms and bringing information to the organization that media and TV are not, during COVID, are not offering educational programming for kids during this academic. And that is something that could be tapped in for supporting the Filipino community at large. So don't accept no as the beginning, and know that you can ask and contact people. One student who's interested in sustainability Googled all the university professors at University of Tokyo, found some that were doing research in an area that he was interested in, wrote them, and ended up getting his own internship to do research. Not an internship, he ended up doing research with University of Tokyo and a professor he was interested in. Another student did the same with the chemistry department at De La Salle University. So I know it can be scary, but ask. I was talking to Catherine Shin, a senior, and she gave me all of these awesome notes that I agree with 100%. So I wanted to give her credit and also share her top tips with you. Researching. It doesn't always have to include fancy, sophisticated lab equipment. You can do a meta-analysis. You can find a topic you like, do a literature review, and then write your own research paper. So not necessarily is everyone going to be able to find a professor at a university who's willing to take on a high school student to do research with. But if you can't find that, or if that doesn't make sense for you, or if you don't know a professor who might be doing the research in an area you're interested in, do it yourself. She says research is not as complicated as it seems. Break things down so that they can be easily investigated. And I know your IB teachers or teachers for grades 11 and 12 will help you with this. Absolutely. What are some other options? Language courses, travel, adventures. These are equally as beneficial. They build capacity, they build connections, they strengthen leadership. I've spoken to parents of kids who have done Knowles projects, and the impact can be huge. One parent said that their son came back more humble with more capacity and a greater sense of self confidence. Adventure. Adventure doesn't have to be just for the sake of it. We had one student who wants to be an aeronautical engineer, and he learned to paraglide. This is a wonderful example about how interest and adventure can overlap and influence us. Knowles and other programs offer wilderness medicine or learning how to be wilderness first responder trained, which likens back to medicine and caring professions. We also have programs that we've been promoting, like Inspiring Girls Expeditions, which are science and expeditions connected. Golden Bolt is a summer program ran by the YMCA in the US, and those are for girls and boys. In our summer camps, learning about leadership and more. You could be on a boat learning how to sail for a month with 10 other people. This is not just about learning how to sail. This is learning about yourself, your abilities, and to grow them, and also learning about team dynamics and what it means to live with strangers. 10 strangers for a month is going to help you when you go into your freshman year of university. So don't discount travel and adventure if you can, and if the programs are running. I know many of them are running programs even during COVID that you may or may not feel comfortable doing, but they risk managed their programs specifically. Language courses are also a great way to prepare for that B language, and might give you a head start, or not a head start, but deepen your knowledge of the language you're learning at school. Okay, service and volunteer is at the heart and core of ISM. You do not have to create your own project. You do not have to pave your own pathway to have this be meaningful. Think local. Partner with clubs at school. Do something over the summer. There are so many opportunities. There's also local NGOs. You know, the Philippines has a lot of capacity and need that we can support. Many of you already are. Think about your family connections and where you're going to be, what's happening in your community, if you play sports, if you can do art, and use those skills that you have to bring to other groups of people. Here are two examples. So Classy Kids Manila and Teach the Teachers. Classy Kids Manila was a project that was started by an older sibling with the ballet classes. It ran for years, teaching kids who did not have access to ballet in a small community. The younger sibling wanted to continue it, but she put her own twist on it. This is the important part to note, is that you can join a club and bring your own interest into the club if you agree with its mission. So she started art projects and teaching art to kids and doing art with kids. But then she branched out and started teaching teachers. She had specific skills in Photoshop and using other platforms to build the teacher skills so they could teach their own students. A perfect example of joining a club that already exists or a program that already exists and adding your own twist to it, something that you can be proud of. Future Faces is another program at ISM. Then they are building a multi-purpose center in Bulacan. I was talking to Sam Concepcion, who is a part of this club, and she says they are still looking for people to join. So They are using eco bricks to build the center, and the center will act as a soup kitchen and a location to hold other events. So these are two programs that you could join into that are already running. Catherine Shin also touched on this, and I think she was absolutely right. You do not have to start your own organization. You think about how you can help existing clubs at ISM. Bring your own experience and reflect on what you can do to improve your community. She says, I was a new student 2 years ago, and I learned about clubs and graduation recs and CAS. Um, and it was really confusing. I wanted to help out new students and incoming freshmen to learn and ease that transition process. At her previous school, they had had a brochure and booklet outlining requirements and service programs every year. So this inspired her to help create a magazine that covers service requirements and service clubs. So she's on Service Learning Club, and I'm sure many of you guys have seen that magazine that came out. Student ambassadors have been using that magazine with all new students this year. So, what a great way to bring your own twist to an organization already here. She says, reach out to organization that you want to help out with because they are always willing to hear your ideas and would love some extra hands. Utilize different online platforms and service. So these can also take place in a non-contact setting. So we're talking about mitigating risks with COVID, and this is super doable. We do a lot of volunteer work at ISM, and I do think it's important to note that when you do work with other people and when you're volunteering, to think about the impact. Are you growing capacity in people? And be sure when you're sharing your message online and on different medias that it's one that the postee would also be proud of and happy to see. Okay. Maybe you're looking to learn something new, or you have a specific interest in mind. We have online programs and MOOCs, massive open online courses that you could study maybe almost anything, really. Maybe you'll be at your family house in Italy over the summer, and you're like, I can't do one of these summer programs because I love spending time with my family. So one of these programs that are listed here might be a way to engage in some learning and deepening and developing while also being able to be with your family and friends. So I talked to Elena Dickinson, and she did social psychology with Wesleyan and found it on Coursera. So this is what she said. A friend and I had decided to be productive during the seemingly endless quarantine summer. So we were scrolling through the website Coursera in search of something interesting. There were a bunch of cool opportunities on there, but this is how I found the one I ended up taking. She joined a 7-week-long social psychology course provided by Wesleyan, which was completely free and self-paced. She said it took about 4 hours of work per week, and it was made up of video lectures, quizzes, readings, and activities that she found super interesting. The cool part is that she was able to bridge her IB coursework and the program. She said there was actually quite a lot of overlap with what they had been learning in IB Psych. But it was interesting to see things like Banerjee's research on stereotypes and Barry's model of acculturation explained from an alternative perspective. She said, I think this really helped my understanding of my IB content, even the parts that weren't directly related, and definitely made me much more interested in the social cultural side of psychology as a whole. There are many options on Coursera, and she said a couple I actually like the look of more than the one I ended up taking, but not all of them were free, and some had a big variation in time commitment. So that's important to know. So you understand what you can do and how it'll fit into your other commitments and other things that are important is a good way of going into the research into online programs. Another student found a way to engage and help with research on Zoo Universe. Zoo Universe labels itself the world's largest and most popular platform for people-powered research. This research is made possible by volunteers, more than 1 million people around the world who come together to assist professional researchers. And our goal is to enable research that would not otherwise be possible. So one of our students found a monkey health explorer where they're trying to label different white blood cells. So these are two awesome examples of things that students did over the summer that was doable for them during quarantine and needing to mitigate the risks for them. Cool, right? Okay, build your own. There are people out there who are also finding ways to experience the thing that they want. I was talking to Amelie De Leon, and she was disappointed in her internship at a local newspaper publication. So she took things into her own hands and started to build a blog, utilizing her skills, previous knowledge to build an online platform to publish her own writing. She was looking for a way to continue to level up her interests in social justice, politics, and journalism. So she was able to create her own platform, highlight many of the issues she was eager to discuss. So she merged social media and politics, and she created her own social justice organization, Bayani Media. The organization was composed of an Instagram page and a blog, and she created posts on typical issues in the Philippines. And really awesome way of building something that you want to deepen your own skills. She said the biggest thing she learned was the importance of adapting to the current situation and current circumstance. She said COVID-19 had made it difficult to find as many interesting summer opportunities, but she was able to find a unique way of continuing to pursue her own interests and actually really enjoyed creating Bayani Media. But she said, and this is important, I really want you to take away from this. Ultimately, just have fun with it and don't pressure yourself too much. There are so many ways to both enjoy your summer and hone your skills. So take advantage of your time. Okay. Things that you may not be as excited about, but your future self, your senior self will be so happy if you do these over the summer, or at least start them over the summer. Start your application to university, essays, senior profile, that one your counselors will be super excited about. Finish your extended essay. If you could get into the beginning of your senior year with that done or almost done, you will be so happy with yourself. And it will really lessen the stress and burden of yourself during your senior year. Finish your teacher letter of rec profile. That is super important and usable, and it will help your teachers write the best letters of recs for you. And update your resume. Next, but not least, is the idea of a gap year. And who should think about a gap year? Sometimes you just need a breather. Sometimes maybe you're a little too young for university or you're just not quite ready. Maybe you're looking for an experience, time to explore an interest deeply, explore the world. And sometimes you may think that you want to strengthen your university application, gain practical experience. Or maybe your predictions weren't exactly what you were looking for. With that said, people are scared of taking a gap year. So what are some fears that we hear a lot? My kids will love working so much that they won't want to go back to school. This has actually been found false. In reality, 95% of students who have taken a purposeful gap year return to school their next year. And one other thing you can do is you can apply to the university during your senior year, get accepted, and then defer. There's lists of schools online that have deferral programs. Another fear we hear all the time is if I take a year off, I'm going to lose my academic momentum and I'll never be successful, or I won't know how to study anymore. These are also both founded to be false. Uh, a sense of purpose and understanding in why you're studying is far greater an indicator for success. So kids who do take a year off and make it purposeful and meaningful actually go into, studies have found that they go into their freshman year reinvigorated and more interested in the work that they're doing in school. And there has been shown a 2.3% increase, so not large, but an increase in GPAs for students who have taken a gap year off. A gap year on, not a gap year off. And that has been higher for males who are lower performers and maybe in high school. If I take another fear, if I take a year off, I'll be a year behind. And we would say a year is a drop in the bucket. And taking time to understand what is meaningful to you can be very important. The next question, and one of the biggest things, is I don't know what to do with my gap year or how to make it purposeful. There are organizations that you can sign up with. There's university programs that you can apply to. And with a little bit of time and space for thinking, it is possible to figure out how to make your gap year meaningful and purposeful for you. That does not mean you have to commit every day of every hour for your year to make it meaningful or purposeful. But do make it purpose driven. Know what you want and want to get out of it, and what is the why for you in taking this time out after your senior year to engage in a purposeful gap year. But do prepare and also allow for flexibility. You don't know what could come into your life and what opportunities will present themselves. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that this brought you a little bit closer to knowing how you can attack or how you can address thinking about what you will do with your summer program.